Show me the money. What do you mean, show me the money? Do you really think it's about show me the money? Do you really think that this is always the end game in personal injury representation and claims work? What if I told you that the resolution of difficult cases, it isn't always about the money? Cases and resolutions can be much more nuanced. Now, am I suggesting that compensation or money is not the end game of personal injury litigation? No, of course not. After all, we still have not figured out how to replace a limb, a lost job, eyesight, or even life itself. And until we do, compensation in the form of money will have to continue to be the best we can do to bring peace and justice to an injured party. And while we are on the topic of money as compensation, let's just hear it for the creators of the insurance industry. I can remember learning about Lloyd's of London when ships would be going out to sea and great risk takers. And the insurance companies themselves led to great exploration and creation. So I say let's hear it for the creators of the insurance industry, because that much aligned industry that is hated by many, hated until you need it. Say what you want about the industry, but in the personal injury field, without insurance, many injured parties would not have the opportunity they are afforded to get back on their feet. To my way of thinking, and it might be a little simplistic, but for our purposes today, let me throw it out there. There are two things that prevent revolutions. One, the lottery, and two, the ability to get justice for harms in the civil legal system. Without these two opportunities, there would be much more world chaos than exists today. And it would be on a very micro level, people versus people. There would be great chaos and instability in neighborhoods and in the peaceful existence of people. Look around the world today. Much of the chaos that exists in this world exists in countries where there's instability, a lack of a legal system that can redress and address problems. They have these things in common. Countries where there is a suspect legal system, no real compensatory system of insurance, and no honesty and justice. Those countries are at risk. Those cultures are at risk because of the lack of hope. Among other things, people without hope are more apt to act out, seeking change in any way possible, and not always the peaceful way. It is one of the reasons that I hold our profession in such high regard, and I consider our profession, the attorneys, the adjusters, the other claims professionals in the claims field. We, the lawyers, the adjusters, we prevent revolutions. We provide real relief where it is needed at the grassroots level. Deep down, it is why you will feel such great accomplishment when a case is resolved. It is the closed case that is most satisfying, not the tried case. Not the case that makes the most money, the case that resolves best. And what do I mean by that? We started this discussion by saying that settlement doesn't only mean money. However, a statement like that reminds me of a few movies. The Show Me the Money statement, that's pretty famous, show me the money. But the movie that I'm thinking about that I'd like to bring into this conversation is the movie The Princess Bride. Inigo Montoya is played by Mandy Patinkin. Wesley is played by Carrie Yules. Billy Crystal is Miracle Max. And Fezzik, he's Andre the Giant. They are all in many scenes, but in this one scene where Wesley appears dead, that's the scene I want to focus on when we come back. And we'll be... Hello there, this is Tony Mascolo, your former litigating attorney with a practice in New York City, 4 decades of experience in working with personal injury cases. I settled between 95 to 98% of the cases that I handled, and I'd venture to say that you should be doing the same and can be doing the same. The only thing I did wrong was not settle them as quickly and efficiently as I could. It did take me 40 years to learn how to do that. I'd like to share it with you now, how I did that. One of the big elements besides my relational mediation method is to go to mediation. I didn't do enough of that. So I'm here to have you consider doing that on your caseload to reduce your caseload, save costs, make happy clients, and a happier you. Hey, let me remind you that at Smart to Mediate, I am the mediator who does the mediations for you. What is what you get? You get a caring individual who wants to do one thing for you. It's my only goal, to close your case. So give me a call, www.smarttomediate.com//book a call. Let's get together. Let's talk about your caseload. Let's find ways to reduce your caseload, save costs, make happier clients, and a happier you. I'm back. We left off talking about a movie called The Princess Bride with a couple of very interesting characters. The protagonist, Inigo, you have Wesley, and we have the Billy Crystal character, very funny, Miracle Max. This scene that I particularly want to hone in on that I think is relevant to what we do, it's very funny, but it's also very poignant. So Wesley has been slain, defeated. They take him to see Miracle Max, and they knock on his door. Miracle Max tells them to go away. However, they talk to him and they tell him that they need a miracle, that their friend, it's a good cause. Please, can he help them? Can he perform a miracle and bring them back to life? So Max is cajoled into taking a look at the guy. So significantly, he examines Wesley, picks up his arm, drops it down, and says, "I've seen worse." He asks if they have money. And they tell him a number, I think it's 65. Miracle Max is not impressed. Miracle Max says, "You probably want him to be alive, right? Because he owes you money." Inigo says, "No way you're ever going to find out." "No, he doesn't owe me money, but you'll never find out because he's dead." Miracle Max then drops what I think is one of the most famous and funny lines in the movie industry. He says, "He's not dead. He's just mostly dead." And mostly dead means slightly alive. So Miracle Max goes through his machinations, but here's what really happens. Miracle Max really knows the secret to good resolutions. He gives you hope. He does his magic, gives them some directions, sends them off, really not knowing if it's going to work, and he still takes the money. He doesn't know that his solution is going to work, but he still made the money, but he gave them hope. So his case was not only about money. This resolution came with a hedge. It's hard not to like this process, and it's hard not to relate it to what we do. How does this scene, which is fantasy and funny, how does it relate to our business? Let me tell you what I believe. You've heard me say many times now already, just in this, but also in other episodes I've had, it isn't only about the money. Just like here, your case may be mostly about money, but it is not totally about money. First, let's consider this. Miracle Max is convinced to work for the money and a noble cause. And if you have listened to my previous episodes, you'll know that I believe that what we do, our whole claims professional, attorneys, adjusters, supervisors, everyone who works in this industry, what we do is a noble cause. Second, just when it looks like your resolution may be dead, that it isn't going to happen, you may want to invoke the Miracle Max method. It may just be mostly dead, which would mean that your resolution is slightly alive. So just refocus and find out what is really needed besides money to resolve this case. Accept that there are things for some people, maybe not for everyone, that are more important than money. What could it be? It could be anything, really, from a simple "I'm sorry" from one party to another, to a more complex analysis of the needs and desires of each of the parties, and also what each of the parties can actually really deliver on. So as a mediator, I always start with the premise that a closed case is at the top of everyone's list, including me. It's at my top priority too. If money alone isn't going to solve the case, or if the money purse is dry, it's empty already, what do? How do you get to closed? I'm going to tell you that you have to open your mediator toolbox. By the way, some people call it a magic bag of tricks, but let's call it the mediator toolbox for today. Although I will tell you, sometimes you got to have the magic. And if you're not sure, watch one of my episodes that deal with the magic of mediation. Open your toolbox and you better be able to come up with a new approach. And if you do, and if you've conditioned them right in the pre-mediations and all the discussions that you've had during the mediation, your new approach could be the boost that gets this case over the hurdle of impasse. So one case I recently mediated was at a number that the attorneys and adjusters agreed should settle the case. Now, all along, the plaintiff attorney had his client present at the mediation, but in a separate breakout room. And he was checking in with the plaintiff on, at various times through the mediation, which had gone through a series of offers and demands, and then we had finally reached a place where the case could resolve. And it was complicated because there were liens involved. A lot of work was put in by everybody, including me, on this case. The plaintiff attorney had his client present at the mediation, but in a separate breakout room, and was checking with the plaintiff throughout the mediation, the various offers, demands, the back and forth. And I constantly asked him, is your client on the same page? Is your client on the same page? And I was reassured that he was. Finally, when an agreeable number was reached between the parties, the plaintiff attorney now had to go speak to his client. 5 minutes go by, 10 minutes go by, 15 minutes go by. They're in a separate breakout room. Now I'm starting to get worried. What happened here? I thought we had the case resolved. And when he finally returns, he says that, hey, the money's good. The money's good. But the client is refusing to settle for other reasons. And I'm like, what other reasons, right? It's about the money. Show me the money. Yeah, no. He said, not to my client. My client wants a acknowledgement that he did nothing wrong, that the defendant was 100% responsible, and that the attorney is sorry for the way he treated him at the deposition, which the guy thought was very rude and uncalled for. Okay, and everybody's, what are you talking about? The case is settled. Just calm everybody down. And I said, let me talk to the defendant. I talked to the defendant and I said, look, here's the goal, right? Let's not lose track of the goal. Settle the case, right? It's not going to cost you any more money. Here's what I'd like to see happen because it could resolve the case. I don't think it causes any problem. One, I need you just to say that you evaluated the case and paid the money on this case because you believed your client was 100% responsible for the accident, or you wouldn't have paid any money at all. And that the apology seeking is easy. You were doing your job for your client. That's what you do. Now, looking at it, sorry that it has to be that way, but it's not you. It's the way the system is set up. So please, you meant no personal affront. The attorney agreed to do that. We went back. He spoke to we put everybody together, including the defense attorneys with the plaintiff now for the first time, told exactly what we just discussed, and the case was resolved. Everybody was happy. We got it to case closed, even though it was not all about the money here. Again, it was mostly about the money. But also a little about that apology that the guy wanted. So that's one case. Let me throw another case out at you. It was handled by an attorney in my office, not by myself. It was when I was practicing, and it involved a slip and fall case at a horse racing track. The case had all the earmarks of a very difficult case. There was notice issues with the case, but it did have a serious injury. After depositions and physical examinations, the case was in suit now. It's been a couple of years. It was not a case that was going to be easy to resolve because of those issues. We couldn't wait to get it into mediation. So we get it into mediation, and we get a nice mediation going on. We actually get to a good number to resolve the case. And this is reached by the attorneys and adjusters. There was no more money to be had on the case. The case had a problem. If the case did not resolve, there was going to be a motion made by the defendants to dismiss the case. It had a good chance to win under the doctrine of open and obvious, which would negate responsibility. And even if that hurdle was overcome, there was a heavy contributory negligence aspect to the case, and it could negate any verdict that we had on the case. That made sense. In that particular case, I discussed it with the attorney, and he told me the mediator had an idea. The mediator went to speak to the defendant's attorneys on that case alone. Then he came back and he asked to speak to our client with the attorney present. So after those quick discussions, the case did settle, and it settled quickly. How? The mediator did a fantastic job because he recognized that this case could be one of those cases that was not only about the money. It's just mostly about the money. Again, I keep saying that because that line in that movie just cracks me up. In reality, there was room for creative thinking here. So the mediator, what he did was secure a promise of a lifetime pass to the track from the defendant. Now, this lifetime pass would have saved the client money because there was a cost to get into the track every time the client went. And this particular client was like the kind of person that went 3 times a week. Now, the case settled, right? The mediator presented this to the plaintiff. The case settled. Was this a miracle? Was Miracle Max working? No, it was just understanding that it is not always about the money. The value of that lifetime pass to a gambler like this client was like gold. Client was tickled pink, had never thought about anything like this. And it validated his claim in the client's mind. It was as important as the money, the attorney reported back to me. The beauty of it was that the defendant now knew the plaintiff would be back to gamble in its racetrack again, using the money that it had given him to resolve this case. I'm making no moral judgments here. I'm just telling you the way this went down, and I'm sure it was seen as a win by everyone. What it took was the mediator to understand the gambling mind. Why did he do it? Why did he understand the gambling mind? I don't know. Maybe he was fond of the Kentucky Derby, or maybe he just understood what motivates people. Whatever it was, it led to a closed case. That's a case where the mediator did a great job. To sum up, the bottom line here is know your client. Realize that it may not be only about the money. In fact, it's a good idea to learn this about your client as you're going along on your case. Don't wait till you get to the mediation. Know what motivates your client before the mediation. And if there's something that's non-monetary that's needed, figure out a way to bring that to the forefront. One of the things I always told my client at every meeting that we had was that a case was years away from trial and that I would try and get this case into mediation because it would be quicker, less costly, and would lead to a certain result. Learn your client's needs. It's not always about the money. And by the way, you can use this approach with everyone involved in the case, not just your client. The adjuster might be difficult. The supervisor that you're dealing with as an adjuster may be difficult. Or the defense client might be difficult. It is worthwhile to remember that we all have someone to answer to and that we all have needs that could be used to resolve a case. And again, that's why we circle back always on our discussions and episodes to the creation of a relationship. Now we add to that thinking outside the box. And as an attorney, when you develop the relationships with all the people around you, even your adversaries, you learn what motivates them. And this will come in very handy at resolution time. Follow my advice. You will have a case that is not mostly closed, but totally closed. The ultimate goal of every attorney and adjuster in this business.